Candace Owens tried to control the narrative until Denzel Washington showed up with facts, composure, and a presence that changed the room. The lights overhead burned hot, but Denzel didn't sweat. His posture was upright, the kind of presence that came not from performance, but from years of knowing exactly who he was. The makeup artist had done her last check. The producers gave subtle signals behind the cameras, and there they were. 4 chairs, 3 panelists, 1 moderator, in the quiet tension that comes when you know something real is about to happen. Denzel sat still, not stiff. Every move was intentional. His charcoal suit was crisp, classic, no frills, just truth. Across from him, Candace Owens smiled the way she always did when she was ready to pounce. Calculated, polished, poised. The segment was Real America, a late-night program out of Phoenix on WJTX, famous for pushing boundaries and drawing blood. You didn't come here to talk, you came to stake a claim. The topic: race in America, criminal justice, political identity. Familiar terrain on paper, but everyone in the room knew when Candace Owens was involved. It wasn't about the issue, it was about control. Mr. Washington, the moderator began, you've been vocal about inequities in the justice system, but others, like Candace here, argue that the system is fair, that race is too often used as a scapegoat. Your thoughts? Denzel didn't blink. His voice came low and measured, like a verdict. See, the issue isn't that race is brought up too often. The issue is it's ignored until it costs somebody their future or their life. Candace smiled that tight, well-worn smile, and jumped in. With respect, Mr. Washington, I think this constant focus on race, on victimhood, is dangerous. It teaches black kids that every hardship is racism. I mean, look at me. I've succeeded. It's not about race, it's about choices. A couple of heads nodded behind the cameras. That was the playbook. Candace as the anomaly. Candace as the proof that the system worked for everyone. But Denzel wasn't a man to be rushed. He turned, just slightly. So you're saying systemic racism is exaggerated? Candace held her pose. Absolutely. We've got black billionaires, celebrities, CEOs. Racism isn't stopping anyone. It's being used as an excuse. This is victimhood as strategy. The moderator glanced toward Denzel. He didn't speak right away. He let the silence settle just long enough to make the weight of her words echo back. Then he leaned forward. That's an interesting position, he said, because I came across a public record last night that says something different. Stanford, Connecticut. A complaint filed by you. Candace blinked. I'm sorry, what? What? Denzel's voice didn't rise. He reached into the inner pocket of his jacket, unfolded a document slowly, deliberately. A formal discrimination complaint filed with the Board of Education. You said you were harassed racially, and you didn't just file it, you got a settlement. Candace laughed, but it was hollow. I have no idea what you're referring to. Denzel didn't look away. I think you do. He held the paper out, didn't need to wave it. The words hung heavier than paper ever could. You said you were targeted, that race was the reason, and the system agreed. Candace shifted in her seat. The moderator looked nervous now. Let's try to keep things respectful. This is respectful, Denzel said, his tone unchanged. I'm not here to throw punches. I'm here to ask, how do you go from demanding protection from racism to denying it exists for others? The energy on set shifted. The cameramen felt it. The producers behind the glass felt it. Viewers at home leaned forward without knowing why. Candace's confidence faltered, just for a second. She adjusted her lapel mic, buying time. That was a long time ago. I was young. It was different. Denzel nodded, but his eyes didn't soften. But it was true, wasn't it? Silence. Yes, Candace said, but that doesn't change the point I'm making. No, Denzel interrupted, voice calm as ever. It is the point. Because the truth doesn't have an expiration date. Candace looked down, not long, just enough. She regrouped. Bringing up something from my teenage years doesn't negate what I've said about race being used politically. Denzel leaned back, his gaze steady. Actually, it proves exactly what I'm saying. When you experienced racism, you wanted justice, and you got it. But now you tell others to swallow what you couldn't. You call it politics. I call it history. Candace had built her brand on being in control. She didn't shout, she didn't stutter. She kept her edges sharp and her answers sharper. But tonight, the rhythm was off. Denzel wasn't yelling, he wasn't debating, he was exposing. Candace reached for an old standby. Black Americans make up 13% of the population, but commit over 50% of violent crime. That's not emotion, that's FBI data. Denzel turned to her slowly. This time, there was steel in his voice. Are you really doing that right now? Throwing out cherry-picked crime stats like scripture? Candace didn't flinch. It's not cherry-picked, it's real. It's real, Denzel agreed, but it's not neutral. That number doesn't tell you how those arrests happened, doesn't show you which neighborhoods are over-policed, doesn't count the quiet cover-ups in gated communities, doesn't tell you what doesn't get reported when the zip code has a country club. Candace's voice sharpened. You can't excuse violence just because of where it happens. Denzel leaned back, still steady. No one's excusing anything. I'm saying the system doesn't see everyone the same, and you know that because you lived that at 17. Candace went quiet for the first time in the segment, visibly unsure. She looked to the moderator, he looked back but gave no lifeline. She changed tactics. You know what's exhausting, she said, being told I'm not black enough, that I'm a sellout, just because I don't blame racism for everything. Denzel answered instantly. No one called you a sellout. I said you were dishonest. There's a difference. Candace sat back, crossed her arms, said nothing. The room held its breath, and Denzel waited. So people don't have the right to think differently now? She asked. Sure they do, he said evenly. But when you step on a national stage and use your story to erase the pain of millions of others, that's not thinking differently. That's packaging a lie with your name stamped on it. Candace scoffed. I'm not selling anything. Denzel raised an eyebrow. Not dramatic, just honest. Really? You're on podcasts, paid appearances, book tours. You're selling a brand, Candace, and that brand requires you to forget that you once filed a complaint, that you once needed help, that you were hurt. Candace's jaw clenched. Her foot tapped under the table. The camera caught it. The moderator leaned forward, searching for an exit. All right, let's maybe pivot. No, Denzel said, sharp but not loud. We finish this point, because it matters. The room didn't tense, it focused. Every time you tell a black kid that they're just making excuses, Denzel said, voice low steady, you erase the moment you needed someone to believe you, to take your fear seriously, to act on your behalf. Candace gave a half laugh, dismissive. The fact is, people like you need racism to keep your careers alive. Denzel didn't turn to her. He looked right into the lens, calm, direct. Let me be clear. I didn't get here by telling people they were victims. I got here by telling them they deserve better, and by fighting like hell to make sure they got it. Candace cut in. Louder now. No, you got here by selling fear and division. Just like the rest of them. And then it came. Denzel looked at her. Not angry, not smug, just steady. You don't get to rewrite history just because the cameras are on. That line landed like a church bell in an empty hall. It echoed. Everyone felt it. The air pulled tight. Candace opened her mouth, then closed it. No retort came. Denzel leaned in slightly. You filed that complaint because you were scared. You were young, you were black, and you were targeted. That was real. Your experience mattered. It still does. But pretending it didn't happen, pretending you never needed help, that's not strength. That's just survival dressed up as denial. Candace tried to pivot. So now I'm not allowed to change my views? Of course you can change, Denzel replied. But don't gaslight the very people walking the same road you once cried for help on. The moderator was quiet now. So were the other panelists. One reached for a water bottle slowly, like the sound of the cap might break the tension. Candace finally broke the silence, but this time her voice wasn't sharp, just thinner. I'm not going to sit here and be accused of betraying my community. Denzel raised an eyebrow, just slightly. I didn't accuse you of anything. I reminded you. That's what accountability looks like. Candace shifted, then let out another short laugh, defensive. You know, I've sat across from plenty of people who tried to make me feel small. You're not the first. Denzel's response was quiet, measured. I'm not trying to make you feel small. I'm trying to remind you you're bigger than this. That line didn't hit like a punch, it hit like a mirror. And for just a flicker, it showed in Candace's eyes a crack in the armor. And Denzel, he didn't press, he let it breathe. That's when the moderator finally cleared his throat. Voice unsure but ready to take back control of the segment. We're going to head to a break shortly, he said. But Denzel raised his hand slightly. Not rushed, just firm. Before we do, he said, voice rising just a touch for the first time all night, I want to say something. Not to this room. To the folks watching at home. He turned to the camera, not to perform, to speak directly, plainly, to the kitchens, break rooms, living rooms across America. If you've ever been made to feel like your experience doesn't count, if somebody told you that what you lived through was just in your head, don't let them erase you. Don't let them smooth over the truth just because it's uncomfortable. You matter, even when the folks with the biggest microphones pretend you don't. He let it breathe. No rush, no hype, just presence. And in homes across America, people didn't just watch, they listened. By the time the segment actually cut to commercial, the internet was already in flames. Clips of the moment. Denzel, calm, clear, unwavering, began flooding timelines before the credits even rolled. Someone in the control room had leaked a raw angle. No cuts, no edits, just truth. The quote, "You don't get to rewrite history just because the cameras are on," was already everywhere like thunder. Backstage, Candace paced the hallway. Her assistant trailed her, phone in hand, whispering updates she didn't ask for. Trending number 4 on X. Over 4 million views on just one clip. Candace didn't respond. She was too busy replaying it all, trying to pinpoint the second she lost control, trying to figure out how Denzel never lost his. Meanwhile, Denzel sat in the green room, calm, composed. His phone buzzed beside him, face down. He didn't pick it up. He hadn't come for a fight. He came to tell the truth, and the country had listened. Within an hour, pundits were weighing in. A centrist Florida radio host said, "I don't care what side of the aisle you're on. Denzel Washington showed us what it means to be principled under pressure." Another commentator posted, "Candace Owens just met a man who wouldn't play the game and it showed." But the real energy, the real movement came from regular folks. Teachers, barbers, students, parents, people who had never tweeted about politics a day in their lives. I've watched Candace Owens for years. This was the first time I saw her rattled. Denzel didn't yell, didn't mock, didn't dodge. He just laid out the truth and waited to see who squirmed. He said what we've needed to hear on national television for a long, long time. Viewers had remembered that old racial complaint. Some pulled up local news clippings from Connecticut. Others shared archived court documents. The receipts were real, public, tangible. Candace Owens had once asked for protection. Now she was branding that same fear as weakness. The pressure was rising. Later that night, Candace issued a statement across her platforms. It read, in part, "I will never apologize for evolving. Yes, I experienced racism in my youth, but I overcame it, not by wallowing in it, but by refusing to be defined by it." Some people hate that kind of strength. But this time, the crowd didn't fall in line. The replies flooded in. Evolving doesn't mean erasing. You don't get to overcome racism and act like it doesn't exist. You can't climb the ladder and then pull it up behind you. And then, quietly, Denzel posted. No names, no hashtags, no mic drop. Just words. Truth doesn't need a spotlight, just someone steady enough to hold it. This wasn't just a TV moment. By morning, people were asking why it hit so hard. And the answer was simple. Denzel Washington hadn't just checked Candace Owens. He held up a mirror and made the country look in. It wasn't about humiliation. It wasn't about scoring points. It was about the contradiction so many people live every day. Being told racism isn't real by people who once cried for protection from it. Being told to let go when the scar is still fresh. And Denzel, he didn't try to destroy anyone. He just stood still while the truth walked in. Candace had followers, a brand, a platform. But Denzel had something else, credibility. And that doesn't come from being loud. It comes from being consistent. matching your past to your present, without pretending the in-between never happened. While Candace spiraled into damage control podcasting, tweeting, reframing, Denzel posted a photo, just one, him sitting in the studio chair, hands folded, 4 words beneath it, "Hold your truth steady." No hashtags, no ego, just the message. And that, not the debate, not the internet noise, is what stuck. Because Denzel reminded people, you don't need to yell to be heard. You don't need to shake the table to tell the truth. You just need to stand in it, unmoved. Legacy isn't built in a moment. It's built in how you handle it. And when the noise faded, as it always does, the lesson remained. Clarity wins where noise fades. Truth just needs someone steady enough to carry it.